Welcome everybody to the Getting the Gig event. My name is Zach Dehovitz. Welcome again. Thank you all for coming. Apologies for the technical difficulties. We'll be getting started right now. Again, this is the Getting the Gig event. This is about how to get a job in multimedia, where to find good advice, and what it's like in the multimedia industry right now, and how it has been affected by COVID, and what it's been like in the last few years. With me today are the panelists. First off, we have Alejandro Guzman, a former CLU student, now working freelance. Next, we have Kat Diosuna. Kat is a visual designer at Green Gorilla and works on everything related to marketing, website design, and packaging. Then we have Gabrielle Rascon. Gabby is an in-house graphic designer and a campaign creator in the industry of healthcare marketing. And finally, and certainly but not least, we have Mary Howie. She an animation producer coordinator and a professor here at Cal Lutheran from the multimedia community class. Welcome everyone. Thanks for coming. Let's get right down to it. First off, our first question: what field of multimedia do you work in? Let's start off with Alejandro. Alejandro, go for it, bro.
Hi. So I guess like originally when I graduated, the field that I like my emphasis was in digital cinema, but currently or like recently I've been more focused on my graphic design and animation and I guess like motion graphics and animation. That's like I have elements of what I've learned from digital cinema planted in like everything I do, but still it's like that's where most of my knowledge is like stems from. But I have been learning like stuff from here and there from like other jobs and stuff. Yeah.
Great. So next person will be for this question is Kat Diosuna. After that's going to be Gabrielle, then Mary. All right. Kat, you're up.
Yeah, hello. So I'm a visual designer. I graduated college with a graphic communication major, or degree, I guess. And for my company, I do packaging design, art direction for photography, social media, graphics and strategy, as well as email marketing and website design.
All right, Gabby, you're up.
Hi, so my name is Gabby and I work in healthcare marketing. So the type of multimedia that I do is campaign development. That's everything from ad creation, graphic design for those ads, the launch, and short film productions that are used for advertising on TV as well as on social media.
All right, and Miss Howie.
Hey everybody, I've worked in animation since 2007. Just before I graduated Cal Lutheran in 2008. I've worked in TV and feature, in 2D and in CGI. And I worked in production management, which is one of the departments that supports all of the artists, ranging from storyboard, writers, all the way up through, animation, technical direction, and lighting, and all those types of things.
All right, great answers, great answers. Just a reminder, in order we'll be going from Alejandro to Catherine to Gabrielle and Mary, then Mary. Don't wait for me to let you continue, just go right after. So for our second question for today, what company or individual do you currently work for?
What is it? The company I'm working for right now, it's actually really cool. So I guess like since I graduated, I've worked 3 different like individuals or companies, but the one I have right now is an organization called LA Family Housing. And they sort of help like find people who are experiencing homelessness. They help them find like some type of shelter or home. They sort of shelter them until they sort of like empower those people to like finally get I guess like houses or get shelter that they can like physically be in. And it's really cool. What I'm doing for them at the moment is I'm basically making like training videos, like animated training videos for like their staff or like different for different type of like training that they have. So say they have a section that is specific for trauma-informed care, which is basically just trying to help people knowing that like their experiences have been traumatic and how to sort of like help them with those experiences, or how to help them like, I guess like not move on with those experiences, but sort of just like help them sort of like, I guess, heal from those experiences. But yeah.
So I work for Green Gorilla, which is a Malibu-based CBD company. I've been here for a little over 2 years. This is my first job out of college, and it's pretty great.
I work for Heritage Sierra Medical Group. This services Los Angeles County for multiple regional locations in California. And it's a primary and specialty care network for patients from birth to end of days.
So right now I'm an instructor at Cal Lutheran for the multimedia community class. And my last project I worked on in animation was Croods 2. And just before that, it was Boss Baby at DreamWorks Feature.
All right, cool. That all sounds really interesting. So our next question, did things change during the COVID-19 pandemic?
For me, I guess things didn't really change. Rather, I graduated with them. So I graduated back like 6 months ago. So I started went into like the whole job market while COVID was happening. My first job was actually it was a CBD coffee company called Big Coffee. It was pretty cool. I was a graphic designer for them, but then like I was with them for a couple months until they went bankrupt, unfortunately, and that was really unfortunate. But they're really cool. They're really cool. I guess like during COVID, I feel like that's like more of a that's people are more susceptible to that, so that's really unfortunate. But recently, another job I guess I did during COVID was I was helping a friend who she just started, I guess, like a taco restaurant called Taco Jalisco's in Ventura. It's really cool, and I helped her design her menus and did some advertisement things for her, and it was a fun time. And yeah, um, I don't I don't know how to say things changed rather, but I guess I sort of just grew into this trying to find different jobs here and there. So yeah.
So my job also hasn't changed too much because we're still going into the office. This is my office. We thankfully do have like separate spaces for each of us to work in. And when we are interacting with each other, we wear our masks. And then every morning we have to get our temperatures taken before coming into the office. That's kind of the biggest thing. And then we mostly do our communication on Slack or Basecamp, which is the project management system that we use.
Working in healthcare, so many changes have occurred in light of COVID-19. Part of that is that I'm now working remotely. However, I do have essential employee status given to me by letter and badge. So there are meetings that I have to attend to with health plans. I think the biggest takeaway from any changes that are experienced is take ownership of your craft. For example, if you're in technology and you have a skill set that aligns you with technology, or if you're head on and you're not shy to talk on camera or learn things, pitch ideas that you think would be meaningful to the company and take ownership of them. That has been influential to me in my career at this time, where currently, my workload has tripled. And on top of that, with requests for private projects on weekends and things like that. And I'm very thankful for those opportunities, but those opportunities wouldn't have been afforded to me if I didn't step up, pitch, request, and see different opportunities in the market with the technology skill set that I do have.
So anyone watching knows that, the university has changed quite dramatically, right? In person to teaching, but I won't talk about that since y'all know how that goes. But what I can talk about is about the animation world a bit. So my husband's an editor for DreamWorks TV, and he's been at home since March. And so I'm firsthand experiencing what he's experiencing. And it's quite fascinating to watch the communication. The reliance on communicating through different devices other than in person is quite a challenge in any production, right? In animation and any production as a whole, where one thing is passed from one person to another, removing that in-person communication causes so many more problems. One, because it's usually one-to-one communication, or if you have a Slack channel with a whole bunch of people, maybe it's 1 to 20 or whatever, but like a group discussion. But there's so many platforms to communicate, right? There's email, there's Slack, there's Google Chat, there's Google Docs that are like live with data. And I think that one of the struggles for production is that if that communication isn't documented in one place, I think that people can get stuck in one thing at a time. And then their work and productivity goes down because they don't know that this person's done and they should pick it up, or I'm done and I passed it off, but the manager didn't write that down even though we chatted. So now the next person doesn't know, and now it looks like I'm behind, and it gets really complicated. And so I think like as a whole, the communication for any type of work has been strained. And with that in mind, how you communicate through an email and who you communicate to, it's important. And the words that you use, how you come off in an email and what you sound like and how you come off in a chat can be dramatically different from in person. And so if you've been at the company before and it's transitioning to this virtual world, if it's not an essential business, right, you have to be aware of how that communication changes and how to be consistent in who you are on all those platforms. So I think, that's been a huge change during COVID. Animation has changed a lot because it's not an essential business. So everybody's working at home, right? And nobody's going into the office, and they're all getting on their computers in the morning and logging in. Some of them have moved out of the state, and and the unions have comments about that too, right? Because a lot of the artist unions have opinions about where you live. Like certain artist unions support Southern California artists. So if someone's leaving the state, what happens if they don't come back? Can they be protected by that union still? So there's a lot of stuff that COVID has really really mixed up and created conflict for. And I think that in the future, we can really see people coming in to manage those issues, which will be quite interesting on that type of front. So it's definitely been impacted in animation.
Indeed. Some great advice. Hopefully, let's hope all that changes soon. Moving on to our fourth question of tonight. How long did it take you to find work, and what advice do you have to help get one?
Oh, it's perfect. So when I graduated, right before I graduated, I was working an internship at it was an architectural place called, oh my gosh, I can't remember. Ah, anyways, it was in Thousand Oaks. It was really cool. But in March when everything sort of hit, I sort of like they had to quit me, or basically they sort of not necessarily fired me, but I couldn't go to their offices and work there. So graduating, I didn't really have a job or didn't really know where to go. So afterwards, I just spent like a month or two during like the last month of college and stuff, just job searching on Indeed and like looking online and stuff. I feel like the best tips that I can give for trying to find work is I feel like just do something little every day, whether just like trying to like apply for a place or maybe like work on whatever you're doing, like whatever craft you're doing. Just do something like a little bit every day because I feel like it adds up basically, it adds up. I have a little thing over here, which is every day I sort of like took down notes to see which applications I sent and which ones rejected me, which one didn't call, which one didn't do anything. But it's a lot. It looks like a lot, which it was, but I feel like that sort of helps you sort of know like what there is and what can happen. I had to do this at least like twice, I guess, because the first job I did have was bankrupt. So the second time it was faster, so that's cool. But over here, it's sort of the same thing, just like a lot of just trial and error and just trying to like be confident in what you're trying to sort of sell yourself as. And I think if you do get an interview or something, know that like they're trying to hire you. They're looking for you because they believe they want you. They believe that you can do the job for the most part. They're looking for reasons to hire you, which is a good thing. I think that's pretty important.
Nice. Yeah, I totally did that same thing of recording all of the applications that I sent in and who rejected me and who like moved on to the interview phase. That's super, super helpful. Just because you might accidentally apply to the same job twice, I don't know. But it took me from when I started searching about a month to find a job, like go through the interview process and find a job. I think I applied to over 50-ish places. And I think my advice would be, depending on what kind of job you want, you need to have a top-notch portfolio ready. And I think it's best to show your work in a case study format where you explain your process and the tools and the skills that you've used. And I think that's a little bit more valuable than the final product, because employers really want to see how you got to the final cool, shiny product. And I think you should also include work that you want to do in the future. So like, I really enjoy packaging design. So most of my portfolio is packaging design. And employers kind of hire what they see. So if you don't have any packaging design in your portfolio, you might not get employers hiring you for packaging design. And then the last thing is, passion projects are an excellent way to show off that talent. And if you maybe, like, since it's schoolwork, maybe you want to get into packaging design, making up a project or using schoolwork as that project is really helpful. And it doesn't really need to be a client work for it to be valuable.
So I have a few pockets of advice. When I was at Cal Lutheran, I was currently working as a student in the Facilities and Operations Department. Now, if I could give you any sort of advice as a blanket for any industry, any point of view, it would be to network as aggressively as possible. Your professors are resources to you. Take that as an advantage, learn their skill set, learn their trade, ask for advice of them, and network even to neighbors, friends, and family. At a startup competition that we host at Cal Lu back in 2019, I had received a job offer to start an internship that transitioned into a full-time opportunity prior to graduation. After that, I was headhunted to my current organization. So I'm very fortunate in that regard. However, I highly recommend that you don't cross out this additional opportunity beyond networking, which is to work with a recruiter. Now, I was unfamiliar with recruiters at the time, and to be honest with you, I was sought out for a specific role, but recruiters are a resource for you. You don't pay them, and it's their job and opportunity to help find the right fit for you. Last but not least, even though workload has increased for those in the healthcare space, my hobby of mine is to create websites on the side for private clients. So with that being said, if you have a technology skill set, it doesn't have to be website, it doesn't have to be ad creation, whatever trade you have, don't be shy and try to create a gig for yourself. Approach small vendors, small businesses, because I'm sure that they could really use it at this time with the creation of a website, an ad, a graphic, a print piece that can help enhance their business. You'll be surprised. Maybe you even trade services, free pizza for a week versus a print piece, but you'll find that that's going to help build up your portfolio and confidence when coming into this kind of space.
So I think everything that the panelists have mentioned is really honest and true. I think that documenting how you apply and which companies go forward with you is great. Networking, super important. You know, really being open to any opportunity is really great. I'll tell a quick story. When I was going to Cal Lutheran, I had an intern, before I had an internship. It just so happened that I was like at lunch with a friend and she happened to be a math major and she was like, oh, you know, it's so interesting, Mary, you like Disney movies, right? I was like, yeah, of course. She's like, oh, the math department's taking a tour of DreamWorks. And I was like, what? And she's like, yeah, you should like totally go. And I was like, okay, yeah, sure. And so I did totally, like, I was like, yeah, this sounds great. Math, yeah, it sounds good. Sure. Like, gonna get me on campus. Sounds great. And so I went, and it happened to be a friend of a friend. So the person who had that tour happening was the roommate of a really good friend of mine who I was in like every art class with. And I was like, and she was there on the tour. And I was like, this is wild. I had no idea that you were even, and she was like, me too. And that's just like the essence of networking, right? Is that everyone's connected in some way. And that if you can access that you can move forward. It's about just moving forward, not necessarily about hitting your goal right away, but moving forward. And from that tour, I met the person who ran the internship program. And then, you know, it's best to not just apply, right? You should talk to everyone you know about the companies you're applying to and say, hey, do you know anybody over there? Like, I'm applying for this job. Here's the job. I'm a really good fit. I'd love to like help them out, blah, blah, blah. And then you try to connect with them. And perhaps maybe one of them will know somebody at the company, right? So it all matters. And that's networking too, but it's a perfect example of, if you apply, talk to your professors, talk to your family and friends, and find a connection. Because really, the really important way to get a job is getting in, you know, into a interview. You're not just going to get it because you apply. They're going to interview you, and from that, they're going to pick people. So your goal is not to get the job. Your first goal is to get the interview. And then from there, you place your next goal, right, to get the job. And then after you do get the job, the goal is to keep the job, which means that you have to be good at the job. And so I think that, and then if that job ends, your next goal is to get another job. And to get another job, you have to be so good and have networked. It's building. You're building off of everything, right? Like, everyone thinks you're great at your job, and then they want you to come onto their job. So it's all about building that platform really wide, so that you're protecting yourself as you move from one job to another. And during COVID, you know, there's so many more people doing freelance work, and there's so many people doing one-off things, and how you connect with people is so different than before. And I think that using all of those to your advantage will only help you move forward. And I think that, you know, just be who you are and be the best at what you're doing, and hopefully you'll get the job.
That's some great advice. Just so everyone knows who's attending, we will the Q&A is open, so so pretty soon we'll be starting that after a few more questions. So if you have any questions of your own, you know, you know, go ahead. Feel free to ask your own and go ahead. Going off what the responses of the last question, I have to ask. Do you think? Excuse me. Do you think, just a short answer? Do you think luck has anything to do with it about getting a job?
I mean, I'm sure, yeah. Everything, I feel like luck has everything to do with like a lot of things, but also just like yourself too, or just like what you sort of want to show, or like what you produce, I guess. It's the quality that also counts. It's not just luck. Because I feel like if you just blame it on luck, then you sort of just like have like this mindset where everything bad happens because of bad luck. And that's not really, I feel like that's like a bad mindset to have, because if you do have that whole like mentality or attitude, then like it just discourages you to do stuff, to do more stuff, which, yeah, I feel like luck does have a part of it, but it's just a small part, just a tiny part. A lot of it is like your quality and like the effort that you put into, like, I guess, like trying to get a job, or just like doing whatever.
I think I would second that answer, honestly. Luck has somewhat to do with it, but if you don't apply yourself, you can't necessarily blame luck on all your pitfalls.
I think it's kindness and confidence. You would be surprised how far kindness will take you, but I can truly tell you, I don't work with anyone mean in my industry. There's a reason for that. They will get pushed out so quickly. So take into account how you treat others, how you present yourself, and not to piggyback off of Mary, but how you may appear in an email. You may think you're being clear and concise, but I mean, with the absence of emojis these days in terms of professionalism, you may come off direct, maybe even harsh. So really take into account demeanor, kindness, and confidence. If you're shy, you will never get the project that you're looking for. Really push for yourself. You are your best advocate.
I think that, you know, believing in luck is a personal choice. But let's say you do. I think that there's possibility for all sorts of different types of luck. right? Like, oh, this is like totally luck. I just found this like perfectly fitting job. Oh, this is like totally lucky. I just asked this person if they knew someone at the company and they do, right? And so anything that works in your favor, some people believe it's luck. And so do things work in your favor sometimes? Yes. But also luck is not gonna help you keep the job. It might help you get there, but it won't help you keep it. You have to have skills and abilities and communication efforts all in line to help you keep that job and to move you forward. So maybe luck gets you there.
All right. Sounds really interesting. Some great advice. Yeah, maybe not. Who's to say? Again, just a reminder to the audience, the Q&A section is open. So if you have any questions, feel free to type them in the Q&A icon at the bottom of your screen. All right. So next question, what is something you think more people should know about your job?
I think, I guess as a freelancer, the job as a freelancer, I guess it's just like you always have to be doing something, or like it feels like you always have to be doing something, but but you also need to like have time for yourself. Just focus on self-care as well, because I feel like at least during COVID and everything, that's very important, or that's important. So you don't like really just burn out or just like get exhausted doing nothing. But yeah, something I guess for my actual job in LA Family Housing, it's a lot of work to help people, I guess, like get houses, and it's really, it's emotional. I guess. Yeah, it's emotional. It's definitely a lot of work, but it's really rewarding. I see the people that I do work with. I don't. I work remotely in my room, but like I do have like meetings with them online, and like each one of them is really like grateful for the opportunity, and like really, they're yeah, no, they're really just grateful and just helping other people. And that's like a lot of what they sort of like drive for. And I think it's cool. I think that's really cool.
So the biggest thing that I've learned at my job is that designing for a client or a company is a lot different than designing for yourself. And design is all subjective. So there's not really ever a right answer, but the design itself is not concrete, but the goals that you create before you even make the design that you work with the client with, that's kind of what you're designing for. So essentially, like, you might not 100% love everything that you're designing, but as long as it meets those goals, then it's been a successful design. And that's something I'm still learning today. So it's like swallowing your ego a little bit and knowing that you're designing for something more than just whatever your opinion is.
I would say don't attach yourself to an industry. And the reason I say that is because my background is actually, I'm a marketing major, multimedia minor. Now, the pathway to what led me into healthcare was a personal passion of mine. But when looking for a job, I think something people need to know is that you would be surprised about how many opportunities are available to you in-house versus agency. And I really stress that because that may be a personality thing that you need to take into account. The reason for this is because in-house, you're going to have more control over a project. And that is what I've seen thus far. Versus agency, you're only going to have the opportunity to review one component of a campaign or project. And of course, that may vary by organization, but you really want to take that into account. The second thing that I would recommend is, as an artist, I think we all suffer from the artist's dilemma, which is you can't take any project personally. It's almost good to desensitize, pull yourself back, and remember that there are going to be other projects that come into your portfolio or rotation. And every feedback that you receive is not necessarily a critique or criticism, it's just meeting the expectations that your employer may have. So those are the two pieces that I would consider. Don't tie yourself to an industry. Consider your options in agency versus in-house and what that means to you. And last but not least, don't take feedback, especially criticism, personally.
it's so great. All these panelists are saying so many wonderful things. Like all of your points are so excellent. And I think the only thing that I could really add is that from the artist perspective, you don't realize how many people they hire to support you, right? So you have like production assistants or people who work in the office, making sure that your office space is correct, or you have people who are managing you in your work and managing the to and from, right? And then you have people who are managing what happens to your work after that and what department it goes to. And then there's a whole flurry of individuals who are taking that and moving even further, right? And so as an artist, sometimes it's difficult to remember that you're seeing this tiny part, but your tiny part fits into all these other bigger pieces. And I think that if you are really aware of that as you work and turn things in and get your work, I think that it really helps to have that perspective. So remembering that is really important. And also there's opportunity there for you to get into a company being one of those support mechanisms before you become the artist at the company, right? So animation specifically, like if a student was like, I want to be an animator, I would not advise, unless you're going to go to a specialty school that links you up with mentors who are animators who are going to work with you to help you get your profile and all of your stuff, your entire portfolio to be at like the top in the country. I think that you won't necessarily get that animator role to begin with, because the people that are applying to those roles could possibly have 10 years of experience at another animation company. So I think that if you're really searching for an artist position that is like a high-end artist position, you should really try to get in a support department. So production management, IT, any type of management, assistant two, a lot of assistant two jobs can provide you with that. And once you're in the environment and you've established your ability to work efficiently and work proficiently, right, in the programs, and you're helpful and you're kind, like Gabby said, like and you're confident in your work, then within that company, you can still apply to those jobs. Like they actually offer those artist positions to people in the company before they open them to the outside world. So there's value to that within itself. Like a lot of people don't understand that. They don't see that you can get these jobs by getting an entry-level position and then allowing yourself to move on and forward within that company, or jumping ship and going to a different company because now you have the experience in the field that you want to be in.
Those are great answers. So we're now moving into the Q&A section. Our first question from one of the attendees, someone asks, what inspires you when you hit a creative block?
That's a good question. Yeah. I think music definitely inspires me. Also just like go on YouTube and just looking at like different artists. So like I think that's a really good question. No, but yeah, I feel like music does that. I feel like that's sort of like it gets me to a headspace like where I want to do something. Or if I'm just bored and I choose not to go on my phone because I've been on it for like 6 hours a day or something. And just like I don't want that. I guess like just forcing yourself to like go on a page, not really not judging what you do, but just doodling and just doing something.
Honestly, I really enjoy making mood boards, mostly on Pinterest, but sometimes just like collecting pictures from the internet and then putting it in InDesign and then like making a collage. And it doesn't really have to have a purpose. It could just be like, I really like this picture, I like these colors. And then maybe from there, I will find like meaning in that and a concept, and move forward that way. It's just fun making pretty collages, honestly.
Now, in this day and age, I have to admit my inspiration comes from TikToks. So don't be hesitant to look into what other creators are creating. I think TikTok is a great way to stay connected to certain topics or mediums because it works as a daily me for those in marketing or the news. So you can get a sense of what people are talking about, what's trending, what colors are out there. And you can see that from the For You page or to the general page on what's really making, I apologize, I work with a lot of seniors. So those in my space are typically 50 and up. in this healthcare setting. So movers or shakers is the term that we use. But other things that I would consider beyond just TikToks is take a look at the social media content for your competitors, not necessarily to emulate, but to see where they're coming from their headspace and similar products. And it can serve as a setting point to see what are you going to do to set yourself apart, whether it's a color palette, a typography, a piece of design, etc. So usually with a blend of both TikTok and social media, you're going to find something and you'll feel inspired from that in one way or another.
So not a ton of people know about this, but I almost double majored in art and multimedia when I was at Cal Lutheran. And what I discovered when I started taking my art classes is that, it continued. I took art all my life, but what I discovered is that I didn't want my profession to be dependent on my art, because what happens for me is that when people, when I feel like there's any type of negative energy directed at something that I created, right, my inspiration and motivation decreases. And so in that point of time, I was like, I got this is not right. This is not right. So I tossed it in as a minor because I had taken the classes, and I continued to do so for me because that was a personal fulfillment. And then I focused my energies on these departments that supported the artist because I can relate because I am an artist, right? And so knowing what fulfills your inspiration and motivation is super important. So for some people, like Gabby was talking about, and Catherine's talking about these boards, all these things are online, but then Alejandro mentioned that he puts his phone down. He's like, I got to get out of this headspace, right? And so everyone's really different. So if getting online and looking at other people's work inspires you and motivates you, then that's great. And if you know that about yourself, then you can access those things. If you know that you're someone who can't use that to access that inspiration and motivation, then you need to know what fills you up, and doing those things. So being with your loved ones or connecting with them, or listening to music on your own, or being alone. Like a lot of people need to like be alone and reflect and like get through all their complications before they can reach that point of motivation or inspiration. And I think knowing where you are on that scale and what you turn to become more motivated is super crucial, is probably the most important thing. And I read this article recently that was talking about the physical problems in COVID. People aren't moving as much, or you're like an avid exerciser and you're up at 5 and you're doing all these things and you got all this stuff going on. And the people who are like moving less, what's happening to their bodies, and you can read about it in medical journals and things like that, is that when you move, your blood flows, and when you're more stationary, things happen to your body that are not positive, right? And so sometimes, and humans have not researched the brain enough to know exactly how it works. But what we do know is that when your blood is circulating better and you exercise more and you move around, all things work better. So if you're someone who's like, oh, I'm like so stuck, like just get up and like shake I do it to my son who's 7, when he's like sitting in his Zoom class, which is impossible for little kids, right? And he's like, I can't write the word then. How do you and I'm just like, just get up and like shake your arm, like shake your body and like get up and just like move around and like take a breath. Like our breath really matters. And so it's really, for me, the focus on what I'm telling you is learning how to access your inspiration and motivation. And sometimes it just takes getting up. Right.
That's a really great answer. So our next question is, what made you pursue your career?
That's also a good question. I think I knew what I didn't want to do when I was in high school and like sort of beginning college. I didn't want to do anything, I guess, like business related, or like I want to do something creative. I want to do something that I'm like I knew that I can do, which is like art, I guess. And what I was like really invested in time, just like I guess like watching my YouTube videos, and just like I knew that I can do that, so I wanted to become something like that. Whether that be, I guess, I'm making montages for companies, or just like doing like a vlog or something. That's why I started like lean towards when I first like started, I guess, multimedia. But now I'm doing less of that, but more just like being creative on myself, like doing digital art or trying to learn like different aspects of digital art, which is also rewarding. I think it's really cool.
So I've loved art all my life. But in high school, I got into the robotics team. And so that became like my like thing that I did during school. And so all my friends were big engineering and like math and electrical nerds, which is wonderful. And I kind of felt pressured to go down that pathway. And it kind of took a lot of soul searching to realize, like, no, that's not really for me. I'm really bad at physics. And I chose my major, graphic communication, because it wasn't quite fine art, which Mary said a little bit earlier, like it really like takes a lot out of you, like a lot of like personal like emotions and feelings to create like that kind of art. And I felt like graphic design and that sort of space was a happy medium of creativity while also being a stable career, basically. And I'm really happy with this decision. I've loved it so far.
Ultimately, you need to be the person that finds fulfillment in what you do. It's very hard to wake up every day, even on a limited schedule, and to devote yourself to something you're not truly happy with. I'm one of the lucky ones who knew what they wanted to do at an early age. I always knew I wanted to be in the creative arts, working in marketing, creating ad campaigns. But if you're someone who maybe doesn't have a definitive answer for what exactly they want to do, the best advice I could give is to let that go. And the reason I say that is because you're going to find that you're going to be naturally driven to a specific thing. It could be as broad or even as specific as you like. And you're naturally going to want to do the things that you find fulfillment in. Now, that could be tied to a major, that could be tied to multimedia, the arts, technology, etc. The one thing I will say, however, and this is a tip of the trade, marketing jobs in terms of employment, you will find that if you're entering the job space, they're really not looking for marketing people. They're looking for multimedia majors and minors because they have the skill set in technology to create and develop content in any framework, whether that's graphic design, campaign creation, content creation in its broadest form, etc. The other thing that I would recommend is don't tie yourself to a specific thing. For example, you may say, I entered the space as a graphic designer and a copywriter, working on social media ads for influencers in healthcare. So if I limited myself to that one niche component, that's where I would be. Now, with evolving, continuing to learn, taking on new projects, I create ads, I create campaigns, I create print materials, and I'm also a spokesperson for the company. So if you branch yourself out, you'll also find more opportunities that fit you. For example, I could never just be someone tied to copywriting and graphic design. So it'll be up to your personality, your interest, and your skill set.
Zach, can you repeat the question for me?
Yeah, sure. What made you choose your career?
Oh, sure. Okay, yeah. So this kind of branches off what I said earlier about how I thought I was going to be an artist, and then I was like, I gotta get out of here. And so then I interned at DreamWorks, and every day I went to that internship, I was like, yep, this is it. This is good. This is going well. And then when the internship ended and I got numerous phone calls being like, come over here, come do this, come over. I was like, yep, this is it. This is right. This is going well. And then when my job on the Cleveland show ended, I was there for all 4 seasons. When it ended and my boss was like, can you stay on till the very end and don't leave me here by myself, like stay on. Because what happens on projects usually at the end, especially in feature or TV, is people leave early to go to their next job. So she's like, don't leave, you got to stay here. I can't not do this without you. I was like, oh yeah, okay, this is the right thing. And so I think what I'm trying to say is that you may not know now what's right. And so you need to go and get an internship. You need to go and get a job, and you need to just go out there and do the work and see if it's right. And the same thing applies for your coursework. Take as many classes as you can that you're interested in and find what you're naturally good at. and then get better at that skill. So it's the same kind of parallel idea, is that you just got to do it and then see how it goes.
Those are some great stories. I like them a lot. So unfortunately, we're short on time, and there are a lot of great questions here in the Q&A section. So we can only choose one. So the next one is going to be how important is a portfolio / demo reel?
Okay, I'll make it quick. It's pretty important. I think it's pretty important. Whether you just make a Wix website that just houses all your work, or just like a quick video that sort of shows like all the, I guess, like graphic design or all the animation you've done. I think that's pretty important, just to show like what you do to other people.
Honestly, when I'm looking to hire a new person to the team, I look at portfolio first and then resume, just because a portfolio speaks to what you have done, what your skills are, more so than a resume or a cover letter, even though those are both important, but I look at the portfolio first.
I'm going to answer this question honestly. I do not have a portfolio. So the way that I was hired by both companies was word of mouth of my work. So my recommendation, because no one has ever seen my portfolio, it doesn't exist, is to put your all into content, and people will hear about it in the industry. And then they will find you, and not to sound like Liam Neeson, but they'll hire you.
So good. These panelists are so good. It just depends on what job you're applying for. If you're applying for a job and it says that they need to see a portfolio, they need to see one. If you're applying to a job and they're not asking for a portfolio, you don't need one.
All right, sounds like it varies. All right, so thank you, everyone. Unfortunately, that is all the time we have. This has been great. I'm really happy we did this. Thank you guys so much. Again, everyone who's watching, this was I'm Zach DeHovitz. We have Alejandro Guzman, Catherine. I'm sorry. We've got Catherine Del Suna. We have Gabrielle Rascon, and then we have Mary Howie. Thank you again for attending. This has been a great time. Thank you so much for coming. I can't thank you enough. This has been a great time. Thank you all for coming. And stay safe.